Chat, did you blink? 0 second. Hey yo, let's go. Alright, let's do this, boys. Very easy guide for Elegg. It's as fast we are expecting on her, as you can see right now. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here, but there is a 21 mil that's gonna show there for my Dorothy's burst, right? Let's show that. And if I don't use Elegg's burst, we'll use Dorothy's burst here, but we don't use Elegg's burst, it's just gonna cap out at 15.8 mil, as you can see here. So Elegg's burst does make that much of a difference. But one thing that I want to point out is probably not people are a lot of aware of is Dorothy. Her burst is a snapshot. So basically in this one, it's based on her final attack at the time she bursts. It's gonna show with 21 mil. But if we fast charge and try to burst as soon as possible, get that, what happens there is Elegg's buff skill 2 has attack buff that lasts for 5 seconds right here, but it requires you to basically burst immediately. So for Dorothy, you have to, in order for that to happen, you need to have Elegg's buff right there. This is only really doable if you have Dorothy and Privity together. Okay, let's move on to skills. Budget is 447, and the reason for that is because her skill 2 is the amount that it's buffing is barely noticeable. It is a good buff, but at the same time, and you can kind of almost have it like 100% uptime, close to 100% uptime. But at the end of the day, the amount that it's buffing is not that much, so you can kind of just keep it at level 4. Competitively, you know, for people, everybody, like when I say competitive, I'm saying like top 50 probably, or maybe top 100, top 200. Those people that really wants to show off their score. At the end of the day, like I think 7 is enough for her. And the reason for that is because there is not that many units right now that are kind of like taking advantage of it. And the units are like Dorothy, Tubi, like Scarlet, Black, Shadow. And there's not that many right now. And if there's more, then sure, I could see that. But right now, there's not that many. So I would like not invest too much on it. But I can see a lot more competitive people that would go at 10. But is it worth the trade-off though? Because right now, I did some testings, like, you know, just quick testings. And the one that come out on top still is Litter with Naga. And that's just hands down, that's still the better choice. But there's other teams that you could end up like using. So for example, you could do Litter, Elegg, SBS, Alice, and Ludmilla. And it actually does roughly similar damage too. See 2.4 bill here, and I did a 2.5 bill with the Litter Naga. So you could actually end up move Scarlet, Black, Shadow, and Alice away from the Naga, and that you can take advantage of that with Elegg in there. It's one way to kind of readjust things. However, are there substitutes, right? Like in terms of 2B, because 2B is one of the other units that will actually benefit from the distributed damage. She does the same amount as like Mast as a buffer. There's substitutes, and also just in general, if we're just strictly speaking about that, like damage on Scarlet, Black, Shadow, and Alice, then actually Novel would actually be on par also. And sometimes like if your Alice is stronger, then she would actually come out on top over Elegg too. Overall, the way I see this is Elegg is not a very necessary unit. Well, in any case, other builds to talk about is for Overload, max ammo. This is a pretty huge upgrade. I would definitely recommend at least like 2 max ammo, because that's like a machine gun standard between 2 to 3 times. When I say 1 times, by the way, or how many times lines, I'm talking about 50%. Somebody asked me about that earlier, and I just want to say, like, typically when I say 1 times line, I typically mean like a 50% or higher. That's usually, and then tackle is just secondary, but the main thing is the max ammo, because that's kind of how she can keep up her buff and like additional damage. But at the end of the day, the main thing about her is her burst, so it's not as big of a deal, but this distributed damage is the main thing. And right now, again, there's not that many units that are really taking advantage of the distributed damage right now, so that's why like it's not very necessary. And then for cube, I would go with Bastion. If you don't have any ammo overload, you can use resilience. That's typically how I would do it. But yeah, again, there's alternatives, and should you pull, I would wishlist just my general recommendation. But like for competitive people and you want to cope your future units, like think about how Leona ended up being like a really good unit when Maid Brevity came out, right? Like, or Tove. That's just kind of like the idea of it, because it is a pretty huge multiplier. It is a pretty good damage multiplier, and it can allow you to use other units as well with it. Some people did say that they did use Elegg's full burst to help on train, but like again, there's like so many other solutions for train that you don't really need to just use Elegg. But yeah, quick guide. Let's go that, and this one's relatively easy to test and not that many units right now. And how I would see her is basically similar to how other burst 2 units are. If they are standalone, Rupee, Dala, Mast, like Guilty, right? Those kind of units.